Dr. Marcus Chun had spent 15 years studying Komodo dragons in their natural habitat, but nothing had prepared him for what he would witness that October night on Rinca Island. The Indonesian sun was setting behind the volcanic peaks, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson that seemed to mirror the ancient scales of the creatures he devoted his life to understanding. Marcus adjusted his night vision equipment one final time, checking the battery levels on his recording devices. His research station, a modest shelter built into the rocky outcropping overlooking the valley, had been his home for the past 3 months. Tonight would be different from all the others. The local rangers had reported unusual dragon behavior throughout the week, and Marcus suspected he was about to observe something extraordinary. The dragons of Komodo National Park were apex predators, evolved over millions of years into perfect killing machines. Their serrated teeth contain a cocktail of bacteria that could bring down prey many times their size through infection alone. But recent studies had revealed something even more remarkable. These ancient reptiles possessed a sophisticated venom delivery system that had been misunderstood for decades. As darkness settled over the island, Marcus heard the first low rumble echoing through the valley. It wasn't the typical territorial call he had documented hundreds of times before. This sound carried a different tone, deeper and more resonant, almost like a coordination signal. He grabbed his thermal imaging camera and stepped out onto the observation platform he had constructed 20 feet above the ground. The valley below stretched for nearly 2 miles, dotted with scrub brush and rocky outcroppings that provided perfect camouflage for the island's most famous residents. During daylight hours, Marcus had observed individual dragons patrolling their territories with the patience of seasoned hunters. They moved with deliberate precision, every step calculated to conserve energy while maintaining awareness of their surroundings. Through his thermal scope, Marcus detected the first heat signature moving through the underbrush, approximately 300 meters from his position. The dragon appeared to be a mature female, based on its size and movement patterns. She weighed at least 150 pounds, her muscular body designed for short bursts of incredible speed when striking at prey. What captured Marcus's attention was her behavior. Instead of the solitary hunting pattern he had observed countless times, this female was moving in a specific direction with clear purpose. She paused every 50 meters, raising her massive head to taste the air with her forked tongue. The Jacobson's organ in her mouth could detect chemical traces from miles away, allowing her to track prey with supernatural accuracy. Within 20 minutes, Marcus detected 4 more heat signatures converging from different directions. His pulse quickened as he realized what he might be witnessing. Komodo dragons were generally solitary creatures, coming together only during mating season or when feeding on large carcasses. Coordinated hunting behavior had been theorized, but never definitively documented in the wild. The 5 dragons met at a natural clearing in the center of the valley. Through his scope, Marcus watched them engage in what could only be described as communication. They circled each other slowly, their massive heads swaying in a rhythmic pattern. Occasionally, one would emit that deep, resonant rumble he had heard earlier. The sound seemed to carry specific information, though Marcus could only speculate about its meaning. The largest dragon, a magnificent male that Marcus estimated at over 200 pounds, positioned himself at the head of the group. His scarred hide told the story of decades of territorial battles and successful hunts. The other 4 dragons arranged themselves in what appeared to be a predetermined formation, 2 on each flank of their leader. Marcus had studied pack hunting behavior in various species throughout his career. Wolves used complex coordination to bring down prey much larger than themselves. Lions employed strategic positioning to trap their targets. But reptiles operating with this level of sophistication challenged everything he thought he knew about their cognitive capabilities. The pack began moving north, following a game trail that led toward the water sources in the higher elevations. Their movement was synchronized in a way that seemed almost choreographed. The lead male maintained a steady pace, while the flanking dragons adjusted their positions to maintain optimal spacing. They moved like a military unit conducting a reconnaissance mission. Marcus quickly gathered his portable equipment and began following the pack from his elevated position along the ridgeline. His years of experience in the field had taught him to move silently through the terrain, and his elevated position allowed him to maintain visual contact without interfering with their natural behavior. The dragons were tracking something specific. Marcus could see them pause periodically to taste the air, their massive heads swinging from side to side as they processed chemical information. Their prey, whatever it was, had passed through this area recently enough to leave a strong scent trail. As the pack moved deeper into the island's interior, Marcus noticed changes in the terrain that would favor their hunting strategy. The game trail narrowed between two rocky outcroppings, creating a natural bottleneck. The vegetation became thicker, providing numerous ambush points where a creature the size of Komodo dragon could remain hidden until the moment of attack. The lead male signaled another halt with a low growl that barely registered on Marcus's recording equipment. The pack spread out in a coordinated pattern that demonstrated remarkable tactical awareness. Two dragons moved to elevated positions on either side of the trail, while the other three positioned themselves to block potential escape routes. Marcus realized they were setting an ambush. The sophistication of their strategy was breathtaking. These ancient predators were employing tactics that required not only individual intelligence, but also the ability to communicate complex plans and coordinate timing with precision. Through his thermal scope, Marcus detected movement in the distance. A group of deer was approaching along the trail, unaware of the trap being set for them. The deer population on Rinca Island had evolved alongside the dragons for thousands of years, developing keen senses and quick reflexes that allowed many to escape predation. But tonight, they were facing something unprecedented. The lead deer, a mature buck, paused at the edge of the ambush zone. His heightened senses detected something unusual in the air, but the scent of fresh water from the spring ahead compelled the herd forward. Behind him, 6 does and 3 younger bucks followed in single file, their hooves creating small clouds of dust in the dry earth. Marcus held his breath as the deer entered the kill zone. The dragons remained motionless, their prehistoric patience allowing them to wait for the perfect moment. The thermal signatures of both predators and prey glowed clearly in his scope, creating a dramatic tableau of life and death played out in the Indonesian wilderness. The attack came with explosive suddenness. The lead male erupted from his concealment with a burst of speed that seemed impossible for a creature his size. Komodo dragons could reach speeds of up to 15 miles per hour in short bursts, and their powerful legs propelled them forward with devastating efficiency. The deer scattered in panic, but the dragons had anticipated their escape routes. The flanking dragons emerged from their positions precisely when needed, cutting off the herd's retreat options. It was a perfectly executed military operation, conducted by creatures that had refined their hunting techniques over millions of years of evolution. Marcus watched in amazement as one of the does became separated from a herd. The lead male's massive jaws clamped down on her hindquarters, his serrated teeth penetrating deep into muscle and bone. But instead of the prolonged struggle he expected, the deer collapsed within seconds. Recent research had revealed that Komodo dragon saliva contained a complex mixture of proteins that acted as anticoagulants, preventing blood clotting and causing rapid blood loss in victims. The dragons didn't need to engage in extended battles with their prey. Their bite delivered a cocktail of compounds that induced shock and unconsciousness quickly and efficiently. The other dragons maintained their positions, ensuring that no member of the deer herd could mount a rescue attempt. Their coordination continued even after the successful strike, with each dragon playing a specific role in securing the kill and protecting it from potential scavengers. As the excitement of the hunt subsided, Marcus expected the pack to disperse according to the typical feeding hierarchy he had observed at carcass sites. Dominant dragons fed first, while smaller individuals waited their turn or scavenged scraps. But Tonight's behavior continued to defy his expectations. Instead of aggressive competition over the kill, the dragons engaged in what appeared to be a sharing ritual. The lead male fed first, but only for a few minutes before stepping back to allow the others access. Each dragon fed in turn, and there were no displays of dominance or territorial aggression that typically characterized feeding behavior. Marcus documented everything, knowing that his observations would challenge established scientific understanding of reptilian behavior. The cooperation he was witnessing suggested cognitive abilities that researchers had never credited to these ancient predators. They were capable of complex planning, communication, and social organization that rivaled pack hunting mammals. The feeding process took nearly 2 hours, during which the dragons maintained their coordinated behavior. Sentries were posted to watch for threats, while others fed, and the rotation of duties appeared to follow a predetermined pattern. It was a level of social organization that suggested these creatures possessed intelligence far beyond what scientists had previously recognized. As the night progressed, Marcus noticed subtle changes in the dragons' behavior that suggested their hunting expedition was far from over. Despite having made a successful kill, they showed no signs of the lethargy that typically followed feeding. Instead, they appeared to be preparing for additional activity. The lead male began emitting a series of low-frequency calls that seemed to carry for miles across the island. Marcus had never recorded these particular vocalizations before, and their purpose became clear when answering calls echoed from different directions. The pack was communicating with other dragons scattered across the island's territory. Within an hour, 3 additional dragons arrived at the feeding site. These newcomers were smaller than the original pack members, and their behavior suggested they were juveniles or subordinate adults. The original pack welcomed them without aggression, allowing them to feed on the remaining portions of the kill. Marcus realized he was witnessing something unprecedented in reptilian behavior. Not only had the pack successfully coordinated a hunt, but they were also demonstrating social structures that included caring for younger members of their species. This level of cooperation challenged fundamental assumptions about the cognitive capabilities of reptiles. The expanded group of 8 dragons settled into what appeared to be temporary territorial arrangements around the kill site. Some positioned themselves as sentries, while others rested in strategic locations that provided both shelter and observation points. Their behavior suggested they planned to remain together for an extended period. As the hours passed, Marcus documented numerous interactions that revealed the complexity of dragon social behavior. The creatures engaged in what could only be described as grooming activities, using their powerful claws to remove parasites and debris from each other's hides. This behavior demonstrated not only social bonding, but also practical cooperation that benefited the health of the entire group. The juveniles received particular attention from the adults, who seemed to be teaching them through demonstration and gentle correction. Marcus watched as a young dragon attempted to position itself improperly during a rest period, only to be nudged into a better location by one of the adult females. The interaction was subtle, but clearly purposeful. Temperature regulation was another area where the dragons demonstrated cooperation. As the night air cooled, they arranged themselves in configurations that maximized shared body heat while maintaining security. The larger dragons positioned themselves to provide windbreaks for the smaller ones, creating microclimates that helped maintain optimal body temperature. Marcus had always known that reptiles were more sophisticated than popular culture portrayed them, but his observations that night revealed capabilities that approached those of advanced mammals. The dragons were demonstrating planning, communication, cooperation, and social learning that suggested complex cognitive processes. As dawn approached, the dragon's behavior began to shift once again. The temporary pack started showing signs of preparing to disperse, but not in the random fashion Marcus expected. They appeared to be organizing themselves for another coordinated activity, though its nature remained unclear. The lead male began moving toward a rocky outcropping approximately half a mile from the kill site. The others followed in the same organized formation they had maintained during the hunt. Marcus realized that their night's activities were continuing according to some predetermined plan that encompassed more than just a single hunting expedition. The terrain they were approaching was familiar to Marcus from his previous research. It contained a complex of caves and crevices that provided ideal denning sites for dragons during the heat of the day. But as the pack approached this area, their behavior suggested they had a specific destination in mind rather than simply seeking shelter. The lead male guided the group to a particular cave system that Marcus had explored during his initial surveys of the area. The caves extended deep into the rocky hillside, providing stable temperatures and protection from the elements. They were ideal locations for dragons to rest, but they also served another crucial purpose that Marcus was about to discover. As the pack entered the cave system, Marcus heard sounds that made his pulse quicken. From deep within the rocky chambers came the distinctive chirping calls of dragon hatchlings. The pack had not simply been hunting for food, they had been providing for their young. Marcus realized that his assumptions about dragon reproductive behavior were as flawed as his understanding of their hunting strategies. The creatures had established what could only be described as a nursery, where multiple females had deposited their eggs and were now cooperatively raising the resulting offspring. The successful hunt had provided food not just for the adult dragons, but for a new generation of these magnificent predators. The meat would be processed and regurgitated to feed hatchlings that were not yet capable of hunting for themselves. The cooperation Marcus had witnessed represented a level of parental investment that challenged everything scientists thought they knew about reptilian reproduction. As the morning sun began to rise over Rinka Island, Marcus sat in his observation post trying to process everything he had witnessed. The dragons had demonstrated hunting coordination, social organization, cooperative feeding, and communal childcare that revealed cognitive capabilities far beyond anything previously documented in reptilian species. The implications of his observations extended far beyond academic interest. These creatures possessed intelligence and social structures that demanded a complete reevaluation of their conservation needs and management strategies. They were not simply large lizards living solitary lives, but complex social animals with rich behavioral repertoires that required protection and respect. The morning heat was already building as Marcus carefully made his way down from his observation post toward the cave system. His 15 years of field experience had taught him to move with extreme caution around Komodo dragons, but the previous night's observations had fundamentally changed his understanding of these creatures. They were not simply large predators to be avoided, but intelligent animals with complex social behaviors that deserved careful study. Marcus approached the cave entrance with his recording equipment, maintaining a respectful distance that would allow him to document the dragon's behavior without causing them stress. The adult dragons had positioned themselves strategically around the cave mouth, creating an early warning system that would detect any potential threats to their young. The lead male, whom Marcus had begun thinking of as the patriarch of this unusual family group, lay basking in a patch of morning sunlight. His massive body was positioned to block the main approach to the caves, while his alert eyes continuously scanned the surrounding terrain. Despite his relaxed posture, every muscle in his powerful frame remained ready for explosive action if needed. Through his telephoto lens, Marcus could observe the subtle interactions taking place among the adult dragons. They communicated through a complex system of body language, scent marking, and low-frequency vocalizations that created a constant flow of information within the group. Their behavior suggested a level of social awareness that rivaled pack mammals. One of the adult females emerged from the depths of the cave system, carrying something in her massive jaws. Marcus focused his camera and realized she was transporting pieces of meat from the previous night's kill. The dragons had cached the deer carcass in a cool, protected location within the caves, preserving it for extended feeding of their young. The female moved with careful precision as she navigated the rocky terrain, leading to the deeper chambers where the hatchlings were housed. Her maternal instincts were clearly evident as she adjusted her grip to avoid damaging the precious cargo that would nourish the next generation of her species. Marcus followed her progress as best he could from his external position, using his understanding of cave acoustics to interpret the sounds emanating from within the rocky chambers. The chirping calls of hungry hatchlings created a continuous background chorus that spoke to the successful reproduction of these magnificent creatures. The cooperative child rearing Marcus was witnessing challenged fundamental assumptions about reptilian parenting. Most reptile species deposited their eggs and abandoned them to develop independently. The young were expected to survive on their own from the moment of hatching, with no parental care or protection. But these dragons were demonstrating a level of parental investment typically associated with birds and mammals. Another adult female emerged from the caves and began what Marcus recognized as territorial patrol behavior. She moved in a systematic pattern around the perimeter of the nesting site, marking specific rocks and vegetation with scent glands located in her throat and cloaca. Her movements were deliberate and methodical, suggesting she was reinforcing established territorial boundaries. The scent markings served multiple purposes beyond simple territorial declaration. The chemical signals contained information about the identity and status of individual dragons, creating a complex communication network that allowed pack members to coordinate their activities even when separated by significant distances. Marcus realized that dragons possessed a sophisticated chemical communication system that researchers were only beginning to understand. As the morning progressed, Marcus observed a regular rotation of duties among the adult dragons. While some remained on guard duty around the caves, others ventured out to patrol the territory or search for additional food sources. The coordination was seamless, suggesting that roles and responsibilities were clearly established within the group hierarchy. A juvenile dragon that appeared to be several months old emerged from the caves under the watchful supervision of one of the adult females. This young dragon was significantly larger than the newly hatched offspring, but still small enough to require protection and guidance. Marcus watched as the adult female demonstrated proper basking techniques, positioning herself to show the juvenile how to maximize heat absorption while maintaining awareness of surroundings. The educational interaction continued as the female led the juvenile through a series of exercises that appeared to be hunting practice. She demonstrated stalking techniques, showing how to move silently across different types of terrain and how to use available cover to remain hidden from potential prey. The young dragon mimicked her movements with the awkward enthusiasm of youth learning essential survival skills. Marcus was particularly struck by the patience displayed by the adult female during these training sessions. When the juvenile made mistakes or failed to understand a particular technique, she repeated the demonstration without showing signs of frustration. This level of investment in teaching suggested that dragon society valued knowledge transfer between generations. The training session was interrupted when the patriarch issued a low warning call from his position at the cave entrance. All the dragons immediately assumed alert postures, their massive heads turning toward the source of whatever threat had caught the leader's attention. Marcus quickly scanned the area with his binoculars, trying to identify what had triggered the alarm. In the distance, approximately 500 meters from the cave system, Marcus spotted movement that explained the patriarch's concern. A lone male Komodo dragon was approaching the territory, his massive size suggesting he was a mature individual capable of challenging the established hierarchy. The intruder's body language indicated aggressive intent as he advanced steadily toward the nesting site. The response from the resident pack was immediate and coordinated. The adult dragons assumed defensive positions that formed multiple layers of protection around the caves. The patriarch moved forward to intercept the intruder, while the other adults created a protective barrier between the threat and their vulnerable young. Marcus had witnessed territorial disputes between male Komodo dragons on previous occasions, and they typically involved impressive displays of dominance followed by either withdrawal or brief, but violent confrontations. However, The presence of offspring added a new dimension to this encounter that made it potentially much more serious. The patriarch's display was magnificent to observe. He elevated his massive body to its full height, extending his neck upward to emphasize his impressive size. His throat pouch inflated as he issued a series of deep, resonant calls that served as both warning and challenge to the approaching intruder. The display was designed to communicate strength and determination without necessarily provoking immediate violence. The intruding male responded with his own impressive display, rising to his full height and issuing counter-challenges that echoed across the valley. Marcus estimated both dragons at over 200 pounds, making them among the largest specimens he had ever observed in the wild. A direct confrontation between such powerful animals would be devastating for both participants. What happened next surprised Marcus more than anything he had witnessed during his years of dragon research. Instead of engaging in individual combat, the resident pack began coordinating a group response to the threat. The adult females positioned themselves to support the patriarch, while the younger adults took up flanking positions that would allow them to intervene if necessary. The show of unified force was apparently enough to give the intruder pause. He continued his aggressive displays, but stopped advancing toward the cave system. Marcus could see him assessing the opposition he faced, calculating whether the territorial challenge was worth the risk of fighting multiple opponents simultaneously. The standoff continued for nearly 30 minutes, with both sides maintaining their aggressive postures while carefully evaluating their options. The resident pack maintained absolute discipline, holding their positions despite the obvious tension of the situation. Their coordination suggested months or possibly years of cooperation that had forged them into an effective defensive unit. Finally, the intruding male appeared to reach a decision. His aggressive displays gradually diminished, and he began backing away from the confrontation. The patriarch maintained his threatening posture until the intruder had withdrawn beyond the immediate territory boundaries, then issued a series of triumph calls that declared his continued dominance. The successful defense of their territory was celebrated by the pack in a manner that Marcus found deeply moving. The dragons gathered around the patriarch, engaging in what could only be described as congratulatory behavior. They rubbed their massive heads against his hide and issued soft vocalizations that seemed to express approval and relief. With the immediate threat resolved, the pack gradually resumed their previous activities. However, Marcus noticed increased vigilance in their behavior that suggested they remained concerned about potential future challenges. Additional sentries were posted at strategic observation points, and the patrol schedules were adjusted to provide enhanced security coverage. The incident had demonstrated several remarkable aspects of dragon behavior that Marcus had never witnessed before. Their ability to coordinate defensive strategies, their willingness to support pack members during confrontations, and their capacity for collective decision-making revealed social intelligence that approached the complexity found in advanced mammalian species. As the day's heat intensified, the adult dragons began seeking shade in the rocky crevices surrounding the cave system. Their thermoregulatory behavior was precisely coordinated to maintain optimal body temperatures while ensuring continuous protection for their young. Some individuals remained on guard duty in the heat while others rested in cooler locations, with regular rotation maintaining constant vigilance. Marcus observed that the dragons had modified the cave environment to better suit their needs. Rocks had been repositioned to create more effective windbreaks and sun shades. Vegetation had been cleared from certain areas to improve sight lines and eliminate potential hiding spots for threats. The modifications demonstrated tool use and environmental manipulation that suggested sophisticated problem-solving abilities. The hatchlings' feeding schedule appeared to follow a precise routine that maximized nutrition while minimizing exposure to danger. Adult dragons took turns delivering food to the young, with the timing coordinated to ensure that fresh meat was always available when needed. The efficiency of their food distribution system revealed planning capabilities that extended well beyond simple reactive behavior. Marcus was particularly intrigued by the apparent teaching activities taking place within the cave system. He could hear distinctive vocalizations that seemed to be instructional in nature, with adult dragons producing specific sounds that were then mimicked by the young. This vocal learning suggested that dragon society transmitted knowledge through deliberate teaching rather than instinctual behavior alone. The afternoon brought another demonstration of the pack's hunting coordination when several members departed to search for additional food sources. Unlike the previous night's elaborate expedition, this was a routine foraging mission designed to supplement their stored provisions. However, the same systematic approach was evident in their departure patterns and communication protocols. Two adult females left the cave system first, moving in different directions to conduct reconnaissance of the surrounding territory. They maintained contact through periodic vocalizations that reported their findings and coordinated their search patterns. Marcus realized he was observing the dragon equivalent of radio communications, with specific calls conveying detailed information about terrain conditions and prey availability. The reconnaissance mission proved successful when one of the females located a water buffalo that had died from natural causes approximately 2 miles from the nesting site. Her discovery call brought the other searcher to her location, and together they began the process of evaluating whether the carcass was suitable for their needs. Dragons were capable of detecting decomposition through their sophisticated chemoreceptors, allowing them to determine whether carrion was safe for consumption. The two females spent considerable time investigating the dead buffalo, testing different parts of the carcass to assess its condition. Their careful evaluation demonstrated the caution necessary for survival in an environment where contaminated food could prove fatal. Satisfied with their discovery, the females began the process of summoning additional pack members to help transport portions of the carcass back to the nesting site. Their coordination calls were answered by two of the younger adult males, who departed the cave system after receiving specific instructions from the patriarch about maintaining territorial security during their absence. The meat transportation process revealed another aspect of dragon intelligence that Marcus found remarkable. The four foragers worked together to dismantle the buffalo carcass in a systematic manner that maximized the amount of useful meat while minimizing waste. They seemed to understand principles of butchery that allowed them to extract the most nutritious portions efficiently. Each dragon carried substantial pieces of meat back toward the cave system, but their return journey was conducted with careful attention to security protocols. They moved in a coordinated formation that provided mutual protection while transporting their valuable cargo. The precision of their teamwork suggested extensive experience with similar operations. The successful foraging expedition provided enough additional food to ensure adequate nutrition for the hatchlings for several more days. Marcus calculated that the pack's food acquisition rate was exceeding the consumption needs of their young, allowing them to build substantial reserves that would provide security against future uncertainty. As evening approached, the dragons began preparing for another night of coordinated activity. The success of their previous hunting expedition and the abundant food supplies they had accumulated suggested that tonight's activities might focus on different objectives. Marcus prepared his equipment for another night of observation, wondering what new revelations awaited him. The patriarch's evening calls seemed different from those of the previous night, containing subtle variations in tone and rhythm that suggested changed objectives. The responses from other pack members indicated understanding of whatever message was being communicated. Marcus realized that dragon vocalizations contained far more information than researchers had previously recognized. The pack's preparation rituals were more elaborate than those Marcus had observed before, suggesting that tonight's expedition would involve greater complexity or risk. Individual dragons engaged in thorough grooming activities, cleaning their scales and checking their claws and teeth for optimal condition. The attention to detail reminded Marcus of soldiers preparing for important missions. As darkness settled over Rinka Island once again, Marcus positioned himself for optimal observation of whatever extraordinary behavior the dragons would demonstrate next. His previous night's discoveries had revolutionized his understanding of these ancient predators, and he sensed that even greater revelations lay ahead in the hours of darkness to come. The second night of observation began differently than Marcus had expected. Instead of the coordinated hunting expedition he anticipated, the dragon pack seemed focused on internal activities centered around their cave system. The patriarch remained positioned at the main entrance, but his attention was directed inward toward the depths of the rocky chambers where the hatchlings were housed. Through his sensitive recording equipment, Marcus detected subtle changes in the vocalizations emanating from within the caves. The typical chirping sounds of hungry young were being replaced by different calls that seemed more urgent and distressed. Something significant was happening in the protected nursery areas that demanded the immediate attention of the adult dragons. One of the adult females emerged from the cave system, moving with obvious agitation. Her body language indicated extreme concern as she approached the patriarch and engaged in what appeared to be a complex communication exchange. The low-frequency rumbles and high-pitched squeaks they exchanged conveyed information that Marcus could not decode, but their emotional content was unmistakable. The patriarch's response was immediate and decisive. He issued a series of commanding calls that brought all available pack members to the cave entrance within minutes. Marcus watched as 8 adult dragons gathered in a tight group, their massive bodies creating an intimidating assembly of prehistoric power. Their collective attention was focused on whatever crisis was developing within their protected sanctuary. Marcus realized he was about to witness something unprecedented in dragon behavior. The pack's coordination during hunting and territorial defense had already challenged scientific understanding, but their response to internal threats was proving equally remarkable. These creatures were demonstrating family bonds and protective instincts that demanded complete reevaluation of reptilian emotional capabilities. The first dragon to enter the cave system was the smallest adult female, whose size would allow her to navigate the narrow passages leading to the deepest chambers where the youngest hatchlings were kept. Her careful movements suggested she was conducting reconnaissance to assess the exact nature of the problem before determining appropriate responses. Her emergence from the caves several minutes later was accompanied by vocalizations that Marcus had never heard from Komodo dragons before. The sounds contained elements of distress, urgency, and what could only be described as maternal concern. Her communication with the patriarch was brief, but apparently contained crucial information about conditions within the nursery areas. The patriarch's reaction confirmed Marcus's suspicion that the situation was serious. Instead of entering the caves himself, he began organizing the pack into response teams with specific assignments. 2 dragons were positioned as exterior guards to maintain territorial security, while others prepared for what appeared to be rescue operations within the cave system. Marcus watched in amazement as the dragons demonstrated problem-solving abilities that rivaled those of much more advanced species. They were assessing a complex situation, developing response strategies, and coordinating multiple simultaneous actions to address whatever threat endangered their young. The level of cognitive flexibility they displayed was extraordinary. The rescue operations began with the 2 smallest adult dragons entering the cave system together. Their coordinated movements suggested they had specific objectives and predetermined roles in addressing the crisis. Marcus could track their progress through the cave system by following the sounds of their movement and communication echoing through the rocky chambers. After what seemed like an eternity, but was probably only 20 minutes, the first rescue team emerged carrying something precious in their massive jaws. Marcus focused his night vision scope and realized they were transporting hatchlings that appeared to be in distress. The tiny dragons were limp and unresponsive, suggesting they were suffering from some form of illness or injury. The adult dragons' handling of their endangered young demonstrated remarkable gentleness for creatures equipped with such formidable natural weapons. They carried the hatchlings with extreme care, adjusting their grip constantly to avoid any pressure that might cause additional harm. Their maternal instincts overrode every aspect of their predatory nature. A makeshift treatment area was quickly established in a protected alcove near the cave entrance where the adult dragons could provide care while maintaining security. Marcus watched as they used their sensitive tongues to examine the ailing hatchlings, their chemoreceptors allowing them to detect medical information that would guide their treatment decisions. The diagnosis process revealed another remarkable aspect of dragon intelligence. The adult dragons appeared to understand the medical needs of their young and began implementing treatment procedures that suggested extensive knowledge of healing techniques. They positioned the sick hatchlings in specific orientations that would optimize breathing and circulation while providing warmth and comfort. One of the adult females began what could only be described as a grooming therapy session with one of the affected hatchlings. She used her massive tongue to clean the young dragon's hide while stimulating circulation through gentle pressure. Her movements were so precise and controlled that Marcus realized she had performed these procedures many times before. The treatment continued throughout the night as additional hatchlings were evacuated from the affected areas of the cave system. Marcus counted 12 young dragons that required medical attention, suggesting that whatever had threatened them was serious enough to endanger a significant portion of the next generation. The adult dragon's response demonstrated their commitment to preserving their offspring regardless of personal cost. As dawn approached, Marcus observed that the adult dragons had successfully stabilized most of the affected hatchlings. Their treatment procedures had proven effective, and the young dragons were beginning to show signs of recovery. The crisis management abilities displayed by the pack revealed cognitive and emotional capacities that challenged fundamental assumptions about reptilian behavior. The recovery process continued throughout the morning as the adult dragons maintained constant vigilance over their convalescing young. They had established a protective perimeter around the treatment area, while continuing to monitor the situation within the cave system to prevent further incidents. Their crisis response protocols demonstrated organizational abilities typically associated with much more advanced species. Marcus spent the morning documenting the ongoing recovery operations while reflecting on the extraordinary behaviors he had witnessed over the past 2 days. The dragon pack had demonstrated hunting coordination, territorial defense, cooperative child rearing, crisis management, and medical treatment capabilities that revolutionized scientific understanding of these ancient predators. By midday, most of the recovered hatchlings were showing significant improvement. Their previously listless movements had been replaced by the typical alertness and energy of healthy young dragons. The adult dragon's treatment procedures had proven remarkably effective, suggesting that dragon society possessed medical knowledge accumulated over generations of evolutionary experience. The successful resolution of the crisis seemed to strengthen the bonds within the dragon pack. Marcus observed increased social interaction among the adult dragons as they shared the relief and satisfaction of successfully protecting their young. Their celebrations were subtle, but clearly evident in their relaxed postures and gentle communications with each other. As the afternoon heat intensified, the pack began the process of relocating their nursery to a different section of the cave system that would provide better conditions for their recovering young. The relocation was conducted with military precision, with specific dragons assigned to transportation, security, and site preparation duties. The new nursery location had been carefully selected to provide optimal temperature control, air circulation, and security access. Marcus realized that the dragons had backup plans for various contingencies, suggesting long-term planning capabilities that extended far beyond simple reactive behavior. Their preparedness indicated sophisticated risk assessment and contingency planning abilities. The relocation process provided Marcus with his first clear view of the dragon hatchlings that had been the focus of so much protective activity. The young dragons were magnificently formed miniatures of their parents, complete with the serrated teeth and powerful claws that would make them formidable predators as they matured. Their survival represented the successful continuation of one of Earth's most ancient predatory lineages. Marcus counted 18 healthy hatchlings in addition to the 12 that had required medical treatment. The nursery represented a remarkable reproductive success for the pack, far exceeding the survival rates typically documented for reptilian species. Their cooperative child-rearing strategies had proven extremely effective at maximizing offspring survival. As evening approached, the pack's behavior indicated they were preparing for another coordinated expedition. However, the previous night's medical crisis had altered their operational priorities. Tonight's mission would focus on acquiring specific resources needed to support their recovering young, rather than general hunting activities. The Patriarch's leadership during the crisis had reinforced his position at the head of the pack hierarchy. His decision-making abilities and crisis management skills had proven crucial to the successful resolution of the emergency. The other dragons clearly respected his judgment and looked to him for guidance in determining their next course of action. The expedition that departed that evening included 6 of the adult dragons, leaving 4 behind to continue monitoring the recovering hatchlings. The team selection process demonstrated clear understanding of individual capabilities and specializations within the pack structure. Each dragon had specific skills that contributed to mission success. Marcus followed the expedition's progress as they moved toward areas of the island known for their medicinal plants and mineral deposits. Dragons have been observed consuming specific vegetation and soil types that provided essential nutrients and compound for maintaining health. Tonight's mission appeared focused on gathering these therapeutic resources. The systematic approach to resource collection revealed another dimension of dragon intelligence that Marcus had not previously appreciated. They knew exactly which plants and minerals were needed for treating specific conditions, and their collection methods were designed to ensure sustainable harvesting that would not deplete available resources. The return journey was conducted with the same security protocols Marcus had observed during their hunting expeditions. The valuable medical supplies they carried were as important to pack survival as food resources, and they protected their cargo accordingly. Their understanding of resource value and strategic importance was remarkable. Back at the nursery, the medical supplies were immediately put to use in treating the remaining symptoms affecting some of the hatchlings. The adult dragons demonstrated sophisticated knowledge of dosages and treatment regimens as they administered the natural medications they had collected. Their veterinary skills rivaled those of trained professionals. The successful treatment of their young, using traditional dragon medicine, highlighted the sophistication of knowledge systems that had evolved within these remarkable creatures over millions of years. They possessed cultural information about medical treatments, hunting strategies, territorial management, and social organization that was transmitted from generation to generation. As Marcus prepared to conclude his extended observation period, he realized that everything he thought he knew about Komodo dragons had been fundamentally challenged by what he had witnessed. These were not simply large lizards living solitary lives, but intelligent social animals with rich behavioral repertoires that demanded respect and protection. The final morning of his observation period brought one last surprise that epitomized everything extraordinary about the dragon pack he had been studying. As the adult dragons settled into their daytime rest positions around the nursery, the Patriarch approached the area where the recovering hatchlings were resting under the watchful care of their mothers. Marcus watched through his telephoto lens as the massive male dragon carefully positioned himself among the young dragons, his powerful body creating a protective shelter that would shield them from the intense heat of the Indonesian sun. The hatchlings, instinctively recognizing safety and comfort, began crawling across his scarred hide to find optimal resting positions. Within minutes, more than a dozen tiny dragons had arranged themselves across the Patriarch's broad back and sides, using his massive body as both bed and protection. Their trust was absolute, and his acceptance of their presence demonstrated paternal instincts that challenged every assumption about reptilian parenting behavior. The image of the fierce predator serving as a living nursery for the vulnerable young represented the perfect culmination of Marcus's extraordinary observations. These ancient creatures possessed emotional depths and social sophistication that science was only beginning to understand. They were capable of love, sacrifice, cooperation, and wisdom that demanded complete reevaluation of their place in the natural world. Marcus carefully packed his equipment, knowing that his documentation of these remarkable behaviors would contribute to revolutionary changes in conservation strategies and scientific understanding. The Dragon Pack had revealed themselves to be far more than apex predators. They were intelligent beings worthy of protection and respect. The memory of the patriarch sleeping peacefully, with the hatchlings resting trustingly across his powerful body, would remain with Marcus for the rest of his career. It represented the triumph of nurturing over aggression, cooperation over competition, and love over survival instinct. The dragons had taught him that even the most ancient predators possessed hearts capable of tenderness. As Marcus made his way back to the research station for the final time, he carried with him evidence that would change how humanity viewed these magnificent creatures forever. The Dragon Pack had hunted through the night, defended their territory with courage, cared for their young with devotion, and demonstrated that intelligence and compassion could coexist within the same remarkable species. His research would ensure that future generations would understand Komodo dragons not as monsters to be feared, but as complex social animals deserving of protection and admiration. The pack's extraordinary behaviors had revealed truths about reptilian capabilities that would reshape scientific understanding for decades to come. The story of the Dragon Pack that hunted all night would become legendary in scientific circles. But for Marcus, its greatest significance lay in the simple image of hatchlings sleeping peacefully on their patriarch's chest, protected by love that transcended millions of years of evolutionary programming.